Yeah, so back again. And topic today, how did I get 34 angry students to love me? In essence. Well, let me paint this picture for you. Imagine it's the end of the day, night period. You got 34 kids in the class, teenagers, and, you know, they don't want to be there. And I've had them since September. They're angry,
Oh yeah, yeah,
they're
yeah.
belligerent,
Oh my God! The night that I passed
you know, hormones raging, and they were really, 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 really gnarly. In other words, even disrespectful, right? Wow, look at this water. Isn't that beautiful? Peaceful. So, I'm stuck at the end of the day. You know, these kids don't want to be there. And it's just not a good mix. You know, kids want to leave early, they want to go to the bathroom, stay too long time in the bathroom. It was just a real chaotic scene. And so I had to dip into my bag of tricks, so to speak, to find some way to get these kids in line. You know, I was trying everything. I was trying this, trying that, trying humor. Nothing was working. So, in my bag of tricks as a teacher of 23 years is one of my secret weapons, so to speak, is group work. Now, I know everybody as teachers might know or have tried group work, but there are certain dynamics to it that makes it extremely powerful. And as I will show you with this example of my students, by the way, they are ninth graders, you know, and it's like, you know, they're just ready to tear at each other's everything. So, here we go. So how does group work? Group dynamics. Well, even the Holy Bible talks about strength in numbers, right? I think Yeshua himself talked about when two or three are gathered in his name, he's amongst. When two or three are gathered in his name, he is amongst them. So, I decided to create groups and have quizzes. So, you have 30 kids, you have 7 groups of 4, 7 fours are 28, more or less. And I like groups of 4s, by the way. It is something from my experience, you know, when you have 4 kids, to me it's more stable than groups of 3s or 5. Groups of 5s are too much, you know. I've come to like groups of 4s rather. Let's take a look down here, the path. And you can see the water from over here. Enjoy the greenery. So yeah, you know, you got these belligerent kids. They want to chop my head off for torturing them. And then, by the way, the class is 50 minutes, almost an hour, right? And these kids are mean. Mean, they're giving me hell. You know, getting out their seats, you know, talking, disruptive. And so, you know, I have to pull into my bag of tricks to get the situation under control, which I did, by the way. All right? So, back to groups. The way groups work, at least from my understanding, is these pressures rather, that are placed on groups, right? You have internal pressure and external pressure. Or in other words, the pressure of competition, competing with other groups, and peer pressure internally. In other words, the groups are competing amongst themselves. So there's internal pressure and external pressure. In other words, the spirit of competition. I think I should go back into the greenery. So I set them up into groups, and you know, at first they were wondering, well, what are we going to do? Where is this going? And I gave them a week to study questions from the book we were reading, right? I gave them a list of questions, 20 questions, and then each week I would give them vocabulary words. And then on Friday, we would have this group quiz. And so basically the quiz goes where each group gets a question, and if that group doesn't get the question right, the other groups get it, so on and so forth, consequently. And would you know, after we got into the game, they were so heated, so passionate, so excited that they didn't want to leave. They were hooked. I had them hooked. So how does it work? The spirit of competition, right? The spirit of competition. How does that work? In any group, there's this group dynamic. The group dynamic is, as I said, you don't want to let down the members of the group. Also, you don't want to be beaten by other groups. Extremely powerful, right? Extremely powerful. And so, by the end of the day, I had them eating soup or drinking water from my hands, if that's the metaphor. Group dynamics. I will leave you with this. The power for classroom management, I've come to discover, is really for you to do less as a teacher and let the students do the most. The power of group management, of student management, I've come to realize, which is a video I want to do, by the way, is to have students do the most and you do the least. There are times when you as a teacher will have to take the lead. But true learning is not watching the teacher. And true learning is the teacher watching the students do. So, with that said, try group work in the classroom. Try group work in your life, in your circle, in your family, in your church. There's power in numbers. I'm your Edgy English teacher. Thank you for listening. Leave a comment. Join the movement. Just kidding. Try some group work. Peace.